not so hot.
True. Yeah, they said they really did want to limit the amount of rules that were going to be implemented, and I think it's gone to a point. I think they could have, gone as far as getting rid of transphasic torpedoes, and there was discussion about how one mine crits and they all crit. You know what I mean? Like, where do you draw the line? That's just all I'm saying is that's basically what it comes down to, and I think they came to that conclusion that on their own that they needed to draw the line at some point, and I don't know if they're going to change anything, but if they reconvene that committee, that's good for them. But I don't really have a say or do in it because I wasn't there the first time. I didn't really commit that time. It would be unfair for me to even have anything to do with that.
Well, and I think because
it's not really unfair just to
it's
not unfair to give your opinion. If you agree with that opinion that there's nothing wrong with scramble sensors and that there's a gross imbalance, don't demand it. Just state your opinion. Say this is the state of the balance, and this is what I think, and do with it what you will.
See, I remember when we used to run scramble sensors when they were broken, and it was a serious issue, and we ran it for 1 week.
They're not broken anymore.
Right, and we took it off, and everyone had just basically spec'd out of it. So the implications of this is that I think everyone is pretty much in their finalizing status of what they're going to be using in this tournament, and I think there's a dollar value associated to it as well. And I think that part is also a concerning factor for the rule maker guys. Notably, I guess
like someone like me who spent money on a Nadion
detonator
console and now can't use it.
Right, exactly. And
yeah,
there's guys that would use this respec token.
Right,
yeah. So respec token would also go out the window as well. Yeah. So you would respec into.
But they've already been doing that. They did that on the 31st. So it doesn't seem like there's that much.
I lost $20.
Yeah.
If it's a matter of the lesser of two evils, having a gross imbalance and a very hard to counter strategy, if not uncounterable, that's available in the tournament because of the rules is the lesser evil versus a few people having to get respec tokens to have if they want to change their builds around.
I should remind you guys that the scramble set AMS isn't countered by AMS. I think you guys know that part, right? The graviton pulse isn't affected by anything on the spectrum. Let's say the inertial dampeners, for instance. That's also something that it's not working as intended, or it doesn't counter it, basically. You need an engineering team, and so if you use
we're not talking about AMS, we're talking about scramble.
Yeah. Well, the scramble sensors was put on there because it was before it was the patch. That's understandable, and that's been reiterated. So
sorry,
it was put on there before it was patched.
It was patched like a decade ago.
No, scramble sensors was fixed just recently.
By fix, you mean the locking out trays, or do you mean the nerf?
What scramble sensors would do, basically, if you were under the effects of the scramble sensors, a bug would occur if you died, or even during combat. You would not be able to administer any heals to yourself or teammates. You would have to relog. This bug was corrected.
You're talking about the tray lock. Yeah, it was a very rare bug. It happened about once in a million times. It actually never happened to me.
Yeah. Well, we had to.
Even back in the day.
I'll tell you. I mean, people had this bug and spent a handsome penny in getting out of it because it was unfair, and a lot of people, such as the crits, for instance, would ream and rant at us for using scramble sensors, and we took it off. So, and then...
Do you agree that since it's now fixed, it wouldn't be unreasonable to ask them to lift the restrictions?
Of course not. If it works, if it's working as intended and has no issues with it, I have no problems with it. I don't tailor the rules.
So I just want to hear something straight from you. Do you agree that scramble sensors should be unbanned or not? It seems like you're sort of beating around the bush here.
I'm not beating around the bush. If something works as intended, then it shouldn't be...
Opinion.
Yeah, it shouldn't be on the ban list if it's working as intended. And that's why I'm telling you, it was off the list because at the time the rules were made, which I had nothing to do with, it was bugged. And that's why it's on the rules list.
Okay, and do you agree that it should be taken off?
I agree, but I don't make the rules. George, like it has nothing to do with me.
We're
I'm not saying
we're looking for a
I've
unified
been over
front
this.
to take to the organizers of the,
We're looking
the tournament. We're not
yeah.
asking you to change the rules. We're
Right.
asking you to help us in a unified front.
Okay, but if you
That's
what you need,
that's all that this is.
right? So there's a committee for that, and the guys that sat down and had this rule making process should sit back down and do it. It's not really up to us. They can determine if it's broken or not, or have it. I mean, there's the smartest guys that are in there. Hilbert's one of them. He was part of this process.
So is Bieber.
Yeah, so, I mean, if anything, this should be up to them to go back and, say, because they have what is called the authority to do so. We have nothing to do with this.
Here's the thing, though, is that what's going to be their motivation to go back? If the motivation to go back is going to be if people like you and me provide a unified front and say, look, you guys have to go back and discuss this. That's all that we're asking.
Because it creates that gross imbalance in the game.
Does that make
and
sense?
In the tournament rules. It opens an exploitable hole.
If you guys are exclusively thinking that scramble sensors are going to be creating a huge exploitable hole, then I guess you guys would have to...
No.
I really don't
That's
know what
not
the
the-
deadline is for the
the
rules.
opposite.
He's got to change the rules, and that's going to be a big problem.
That's irrelevant. If it's too late to change the rules, it's too late to change the rules. All that we're asking for is a sign of support to say, I support this, you guys should go back if it's possible and think about this again.
Yeah, if you
TSI
guys
has already,
right.
TSI has already indicated on the forums that they see the same hole that we see. So I don't think we'd have any problems getting them on board with it as well. And I think if TSI, Sad Pandas, and Turkish Role Player Heroes go to Pascal and say, hey, listen, here's an exploitable hole as a result of combinations of rules, some of which were created after the council
In good
meeting,
faith.
can we do something about this?
Well, of course, but he's not going to change them. Like, you guys just don't. He's going to say this, though. The committee has already done their thing, and that's that. I'll tell him, and he won't do it. I'll tell him, because you know what? The thing about Pascal is that today I needed a little bit more time to have someone put on the team. We needed to rearrange our teams again, so whatever. He said, no, it has to be done on the dot at this time, and then I'm locking the post. He's been granted this much authority, and I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a little bit of a far-fetched situation. He's not too big of a big fan of TSI or Sad Pandas, and he doesn't really even bend backwards for me either. So, I mean, I could tell him, but he's not going to do it.
Yeah, that's all that we're asking. Skepticism notwithstanding, but just the exploitable hole didn't actually happen until Nadion detonators were also banned, because either one can be a counter to that specific strategy, but if you ban both of them, that's the problem. And of the two, there's only one that makes sense to unban, assuming that you can't unban Nadion detonators and then just ban the DOF.
Right.
Is that all?
Well, no, you got a point there, but, the reason why they banned the Nadion is because they got affected by... It was kind of like I think they drew that conclusion at the same time they did with the EMP.
But that wasn't a factor in the council meeting when people were banning scrambles.
No, they banned scrambles because it was bugged. See, that's the kicker. But now that it's not bugged anymore, there's no reason for it to be around. It's not anymore, but it was, and up until a few patches ago. Now he's going to come back to you and say, "I'm sorry, the rules have already been implemented." I'm not entirely sure what you guys are asking me to do. I can tell him, but I don't have anything to do with the rule-making process.
That's all that we're asking, is just for a sign of support, not to necessarily do anything with any authority. We know that you aren't like us, you aren't in the position to change things by yourself.
Yeah.
We just see whether it's intentional or not, a huge gaping hole that was created by the combination of those two rules, the scramble and the nadir. That's all. And if something else broke tomorrow, you can't tell me they'd let it in the tournament if it was vastly broken.
Right.
This is a vastly broken combination of rules.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I guess you can. I mean, we're playing a broken game, so there's a vast combination of other items that can be exploited as well. And I think you guys are really focusing on one area of it.
We've already discovered a few other things that could be exploited during the tournament. Mostly, we just don't feel like grinding them out.
Right. I mean, and that's what I mean. So, where do you draw the line? You know what I mean? He's going to come back and say the same thing. He's going to be like, okay, so.
Just because there might be other unknown, unexploitable holes in the balance doesn't mean you don't try and plug the ones that you know are there.
Yeah, sure. That's. I mean.
Can you look at it from our point of view?
Of course I can.
Team that doesn't normally run tractor beam repulsor.
Right, but
that leaves us in a position where we're almost forced to use it.
Forced to use TBR.
Because, yes, almost. What else can you do? You can use your ox to dampeners. You can use your polarized hull, both of which.
But then you take massive kinetic damage.
There is no longer anything you can do to stop the TBR. You can't get close enough to use a shockwave without taking massive amounts of damage. You can't use a shockwave at distance because the Nadion is gone, and you can't use scrambles to confuse the targeting of those tractor beam repulsors. Combination of rules, and
you guys have really put something together for. From what I can recollect, it's kind of humorous. I guess you guys have analyzed this to a point where it's as though that TBR is not counterable, but aforementioned abilities
in combination with a team that's using the shockwaves and the DOFs, unless you want to throw together a team that does the same thing and just outdo the other team at their own game, which is probably what we'd be forced to do.
Okay, so what it all boils down to, you guys are asking me to voice an opinion on just because a set of counters that counter our strategy should be re-implemented just because they can counter the TBR strategy. There's multitudes of strategies that can be countered.
Because there are no other counters.
There are. We do our in-house PvPs all the time. There's going to be one day, there's going to be another team that counters our TBR. We're not stupid. We did sit down and we do have our in-house PvPs. And we tractor repulsor each other, and we don't use scramble sensors to do it. We use the generic stuff, and it really does work. I mean, you guys can use your scramble sensors, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a counter. It's really about coordination. So if you say so, but it's not necessarily the hard counter to the strategy. It's a very timed strategy.
If it's used correctly, then it can be a hard counter. But now you're sort of just almost confirming our original suspicions. Whether
if you have suspicions, that's fine.
The rules are gamed in that way, or whether or not
you can draw any kind of conclusion you want.
Just a
George,
little bit of
now I'm starting to draw the conclusion that that's what you called me in here for. But I'm not going to entertain that factor because what I'm going to tell you right now is you can have your scramble sensors, it ain't going to make a difference. That's all I got to say.
Alright, now we're just getting a little bit, how would you say, into an ugly zone.
Yeah, we should probably stop that. Pax, thank you for coming and at least listening to us. It's a lot more than some people would have done.
Alright, gentlemen, have a good night.
Yep,
You too.
Yeah, good night.